My name is Sheila. I'm 28 years old and I'm standing here in my wedding dress while my mother tears apart everything about my special day. This is pathetic and embarrassment to our family name, she hisses, comparing it to my sister's lavish celebration. As she threatens to announce to all our guests that this is just a charity case wedding, my phone buzzes with a message from my private investigator. Reading it, I smile coldly in the mirror. In 30 minutes, everyone will discover the terrifying truth about my perfect family. Before we dive into this incredible story of family betrayal and sweet revenge, I want to know where in the world you're watching from today. Are you someone who's also dealt with toxic family members who tried to dim your light? Hit that like button if you believe that. Sometimes the best revenge is exposing the truth, and don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, you won't want to miss how this wedding day turns into something nobody saw coming. This story will show you exactly why blood doesn't always mean family, and sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. Growing up in the Morrison family meant understanding your place from day one, and my place was always second. My mother, Dorothy, was what people called a socialite, which really meant she spent her days planning charity galas where she could show off her jewelry and judge other women's outfits. My father, Robert, built his construction empire from the ground up, or so he told everyone at cocktail parties. And then there was Brittany, my older sister by 3 years, who could do no wrong in their eyes. I remember being 7 years old, coming home with a perfect report card running to show my mother. She barely glanced at it before saying, "That's nice, dear," and went back to planning Brittany's birthday party. The same day, Brittany brought home a participation trophy from her dance recital, and you would have thought she'd won an Olympic gold medal. My mother called everyone in her phone book to brag about her talented daughter. This pattern continued through every milestone of our lives. When I won the state science fair in 10th grade, my parents didn't even attend the ceremony because Brittany had a modeling audition that day. She didn't get the job, but somehow that failure needed more comfort and attention than my success deserved. When I graduated valedictorian from high school, my mother spent my graduation dinner talking about how Brittany was finding herself after dropping out of community college. The real slap in the face came during Brittany's wedding 5 years ago. My parents spent $300,000 on what could only be described as a royal celebration. 700 guests, a reception at the most exclusive country club in the state, flowers flown in from Holland, and a dress that cost more than most people's cars. The wedding was featured in 3 different magazines, and my mother made sure to frame every article and display them prominently in our family home. "This is what a real Morrison wedding looks like," she would say whenever anyone visited, making sure I was within earshot. The implication was clear: this was the standard, and anything less was a disappointment. When I met Jake during my first year of teaching, everything felt different. He was a software developer who volunteered at the community center where I ran an after-school program. He saw me for who I was, not as Brittany's lesser sister. He celebrated my victories, comforted me through my defeats, and most importantly, he helped me see that my family's treatment wasn't normal or acceptable. When we got engaged, I foolishly hoped things might change. Maybe my parents would see this as a chance to show they cared about both their daughters equally. I should have known better. When I asked them about helping with wedding costs, my father actually laughed. "Wedding money. Didn't we already pay for one wedding?" he said, as if Brittany's wedding had somehow counted for both of us. My mother was even crueler. "Darling, not everyone can have a magazine wedding. Maybe something simple in the backyard would be more appropriate for your situation." My situation. As if being a teacher, having a stable relationship, and being a functioning adult was somehow lesser than Brittany's life of spending her husband's money and posting on social media. The comparisons never stopped. At every family gathering, my mother would pull out Brittany's wedding album and show it to anyone who would look. "Brittany's fashion business is just taking off. She would lie even though I knew Brittany hadn't sold a single piece of her designer clothing line. Meanwhile, when anyone asked about me, my mother would sigh and say, "Oh, Sheila teaches? Public school? We all can't be entrepreneurs, I suppose." My father was no better. He had taken to calling me his spare daughter after one too many drinks, always following it up with that booming laugh of his that made everyone else uncomfortable, but too polite to say anything. He would talk about Brittany joining the family business even though she had never worked a day in her life and had no interest in construction. When I pointed out that I had actually gotten a business degree before choosing teaching, he waved me off. Teaching isn't real business, sweetheart. The breaking point came 6 months before my wedding. My parents had invited Jake and me over for dinner, and I stupidly thought they might be softening. Instead, after the main course, they announced they were buying Brittany and her husband a second house. For investment purposes, my mother said, though we all knew Brittany would use it as a vacation home. "That's wonderful," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Jake and I were actually hoping to talk to you about a small loan for our wedding. Nothing like Brittany's, just maybe 20,000 to help with the venue and catering." The silence was deafening. My mother actually clutched her pearls like she was in a bad movie. 20,000, Sheila, that's quite a sum. Perhaps you should consider something more within your means. You just bought Brittany a house. Jake pointed out, his voice calm but firm. "That's different," my father said. "That's an investment in the family business." "What family business?" I asked. "Brittany doesn't work for you." "She represents the Morrison name properly," my mother snapped. "She understands the importance of appearances. You teaching at that school, marrying—" She gestured at Jake like he was something she'd stepped in. "This is not what we envisioned for you." That night, driving home in silence, I made a decision. If my family wanted to treat me like an outsider, then I would start looking at them like one. And outsiders notice things that insiders take for granted. Like how Brittany's successful business never seemed to have any customers. Like how my father's construction projects always seemed to have mysterious investors. Like how my mother knew things about city planning decisions before they were announced publicly. I hired a private investigator the next day. If my family had secrets, I was going to find them. And what I discovered would change everything. The private investigator I hired came recommended by a lawyer friend who specialized in financial crimes. Diana Reeves was a former FBI agent who had gone into private practice, and when I sat in her office that first day, I felt like I was taking the first step towards something I couldn't take back. "I need you to look into my family's finances," I told her. "Something isn't adding up." Diana leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Family investigations can get messy. Are you prepared for what you might find?" I thought about 28 years of being told I wasn't good enough, smart enough, pretty enough. "I'm prepared." The first reports came back within 2 weeks, and they confirmed what I had suspected. Brittany's fashion business, Brittany Morrison Designs, was hemorrhaging money. The company had reported losses of over $200,000 in the past year alone, yet somehow Brittany maintained her lavish lifestyle. The paper trail led directly back to my parents' accounts. They had been funneling money to her through consulting fees and marketing expenses. "Your sister hasn't sold a single item in 6 months," Diana told me during one of our meetings. "The website gets maybe 10 visits a month, and those are probably her checking it herself. This isn't a business, it's a very expensive hobby." But that was just the beginning. Jake, who had skills I was just beginning to appreciate, helped Diana trace the digital footprints. What they found made my blood run cold. For years, Brittany had been systematically stealing my accomplishments and claiming them as her own. "Look at this," Jake showed me on his laptop one evening. "This charity foundation your sister claims she started, the original incorporation documents have your name on them. They were altered after the fact." I stared at the screen, remembering how hard I had worked to start that literacy program for underprivileged kids. I had written grants, organized fundraisers, spent countless hours building it from nothing. Then I had to step back when I started teaching full-time, and somehow Brittany had swooped in and claimed she was the founder. Diana's investigation revealed more. My high school science fair victory, Brittany had told her husband's family that she had won it. The scholarship I earned to college, Brittany claimed she had turned it down to pursue modeling. Even my volunteer work at the animal shelter had somehow become part of Brittany's fabricated resume. But why? I asked Diana. Why would she need to steal my accomplishments? Because she doesn't have any of her own, Diana replied simply. Your parents have created a fiction and everyone has to play their part to maintain it. The digital trail Jake uncovered was even more disturbing. He found emails between Brittany and our mother planning how to undermine me at family gatherings. There were actual spreadsheets of talking points to use to make me look bad. Mention her weight gain. Bring up that she's still renting. Ask why she doesn't dress better on a teacher's salary. One email from Brittany made me physically sick. We need to do something about Sheila's engagement. She's getting too confident. Remember what happened with Tom? We can't let her actually think she deserves happiness. Tom. I hadn't thought about him in years. My college boyfriend who had suddenly broken up with me saying his family didn't think I was ambitious enough. Now I wondered what my family had said to him. Diana interviewed some of my former colleagues and professors, people I had lost touch with over the years. The stories they told painted a clear picture. My mother had been calling them planting seeds of doubt about my mental stability. I'm just so worried about Sheila, she would say. She's always been fragile. The family pressure, you understand. We try to shield her, but sometimes she makes up stories for attention. Professor Williams, who had mentored me in college, was particularly angry when Diana spoke to him. I always wondered why Sheila never applied for the graduate program. She was my best student. Then her mother called thanking me for understanding Sheila's limitations and saying they didn't think she could handle the stress. I thought Sheila had told her mother she wasn't interested. Now I realize the conversation happened without Sheila's knowledge. The investigation also revealed financial irregularities that went beyond funding Brittany's fake business. There were property transfers, suspicious contracts, and what looked like a deliberate pattern of keeping me from any family assets. Every time my name should have appeared on a document, it had been removed or replaced with Brittany's. But the most shocking discovery came when Diana managed to get copies of my parents' recent legal documents. They had been meeting with lawyers to restructure their will, and the new documents were clear everything would go to Brittany. The reasoning stated was that I was mentally incompetent and unable to manage financial assets. They're building a case, Diana explained. This isn't just favoritism. They're actively working to cut you out completely, and they're creating a paper trail to justify it legally. Jake found more evidence in the form of deleted social media posts and cached web pages. My family had been conducting a campaign to isolate me for years. Every time I made a friend or professional connection, someone would reach out with subtle warnings about me. My mother was particularly skilled at this, using her charity connections to spread gossip disguised as concern. One recovered message showed Brittany reaching out to Jake's ex-girlfriend trying to get dirt on him. When that didn't work, she had tried to create fake social media profiles to catfish him, hoping to break us up. Jake had noticed the attempts, but hadn't wanted to worry me at the time. Now, seeing it as part of a larger pattern, it was terrifying. Why go to all this trouble? I asked Diana one day, overwhelmed by the sheer scope of what they had done. Control, she answered. Your family has built their entire identity around a specific narrative. Brittany is the success, you're the failure. If you succeed, if you're happy, if you thrive, it threatens everything they've constructed. It's easier to destroy you than to admit they've been wrong. The investigation had started as a way to understand why my family treated me differently, but as the evidence mounted, I realized this went far beyond simple favoritism. This was a systematic campaign to destroy my life, and it had been going on for years. The question now was, what was I going to do about it? As my wedding day approached, I made my decision. They wanted to call my wedding an embarrassment. Fine. But they were about to learn that the real embarrassment was thinking they could destroy me without consequences. Diana called me 3 weeks before my wedding with a tone in her voice I'd never heard before. "Sheila, we need to meet. Not at my office. Somewhere public with lots of people around." We met at a crowded coffee shop downtown. Diana slid a folder across the table to me, her eyes constantly scanning the room. "What I'm about to show you changes everything. Your family isn't just toxic, they're dangerous." The first document in the folder was a financial report on my father's construction company. "Your father's business has been struggling for years," Diana explained. "But somehow he keeps getting major city contracts." I dug deeper into his investors. The names on the paper meant nothing to me at first, but Diana's next words made my blood run cold. "These aren't legitimate businessmen, Sheila. Your father has been taking money from organized crime to keep his company afloat. And in return, his construction sites are being used for money laundering." I stared at the evidence, trying to process what this meant. My father, who preached about hard work and honest business, was in bed with the mob. "It gets worse," Diana continued. She showed me bank records that traced a clear pattern. Brittany hadn't just been taking money from our parents for her fake business, she had been embezzling directly from the construction company. "She has access to the company accounts probably given by your father to make her feel important, but she's been skimming from the mob's money. That's incredibly dangerous." Jake, who had been helping with the technical aspects of the investigation, had uncovered something else. "Your mother's charity connections. They're being used to launder money, too. She knows exactly what's happening." But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Diana had managed to get photographs and audio recordings from a source inside my father's company. The images showed my mother meeting with Thomas Carlyle, my father's business partner, at various hotels. The audio made it clear their relationship was far from professional. "Your mother has been having an affair with Carlyle for at least 5 years, Diana said. "But here's the thing. Carlyle is the one who brought the mob connections to your father. Your mother isn't just cheating. She's actively involved in the criminal enterprise." The folder contained more evidence. Emails between my parents discussing how to handle the Sheila problem. They were worried that as a teacher, I might notice discrepancies in their story. That's when they had started the campaign to discredit me. "Look at this email from 2 years ago," Diana pointed out. "Your mother writes, 'We need to ensure Sheila is seen as unstable. If the authorities ever investigate, she needs to be an unreliable witness.'" There were forged documents with my signature, fake contracts that showed me taking money from the company. If anything went wrong, if the FBI or IRS started investigating, everything would point to me as the embezzler. "They're not just cutting you out," Diana said grimly. "They're setting you up to take the fall for their crimes." The evidence kept coming. Jake had found a deleted folder on a cloud drive that Brittany had forgotten about. In it were recordings she had made secretly, probably for blackmail purposes. One recording captured our parents discussing their plan to have me committed to a psychiatric facility. "Dr. Morrison has agreed to sign the papers," my mother's voice said on the recording. "He owes Robert for that construction contract at his clinic. Once Sheila is committed, we can get power of attorney. Everything will be clean." My hands shook as I listened. Dr. Morrison was a family friend who had come to every holiday dinner for the past decade. He had smiled at me, asked about my teaching, acted like he cared. And the whole time he was ready to lock me away on my parents' orders. "When were they planning to do this?" I asked. "Based on the emails after your wedding," Diana said. "They figured you'd be distracted with your honeymoon. You'd come back to find yourself being involuntarily committed for evaluation." The conspiracy went even deeper. They had reached out to Jake's employer, trying to get him fired. When that didn't work, they had contacted his family with lies about me. Jake's parents had received anonymous letters claiming I was a drug addict who was using their son for money. Thankfully, Jake's family knew better, but it showed how far my family was willing to go. Diana had one more bombshell. "I had a contact run a deeper check on some of these mob connections. The FBI already has your father's business under surveillance. They're building a RICO case. It's only a matter of time before arrests are made. So they're going to get caught anyway? I asked. Eventually, yes. But these investigations take years. And when it happens, all those forged documents point to you. Unless, unless I give them evidence first, I finished. Diana nodded. I've been in touch with my former FBI colleagues. If you're willing to cooperate to hand over everything we've found, they can move faster. And more importantly, they can protect you. The full scope of what my family had done was staggering. This wasn't just favoritism or emotional abuse. This was a criminal conspiracy that had been using me as a potential scapegoat for years. Every cruel word, every dismissive gesture, every moment of making me feel worthless, it had all been part of a larger plan to ensure that if their house of cards fell, I would be buried under it. There's one more thing, Diana said as we prepared to leave. That psychiatric facility they were planning to send you to, I looked into it. It's not a legitimate treatment center. It's a place where rich families send problem relatives to disappear. Some patients haven't been seen in years. I felt sick. My family wasn't just planning to frame me or discredit me. They were planning to make me disappear entirely. As I walked out of that coffee shop, I made my decision. They wanted to destroy me. They wanted to use my wedding as another opportunity to humiliate and control me. They had no idea what was coming. I had evidence of embezzlement, money laundering fraud, conspiracy, and attempted false imprisonment. My wedding was in 3 weeks. That gave me just enough time to set everything in motion. They thought they were coming to watch me be humiliated one more time. Instead, they would be walking into their own destruction. The morning of my wedding, I stood in the bridal suite of the modest venue Jake and I had chosen, looking at myself in the mirror. My dress was simple but elegant, nothing like the monstrosity Brittany had worn to her $300,000 spectacle. I had done my own makeup, arranged my own flowers, and I felt more beautiful than I ever had in my life. Maybe because for the first time I knew my worth had nothing to do with my family's approval. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Agents in position. Recording equipment tested and working. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I typed back. More sure than I've ever been about anything. Jake knocked on the door. Honey, your family just arrived. Your mom is already complaining about the parking situation. I smiled. Of course she was. Send them in. Let's get this show started. The door burst open without another knock, and in swept my mother Dorothy, wearing a dress that probably cost more than our entire wedding. Behind her was Brittany, and I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. She was wearing white. A designer white dress that was fancier than mine, complete with a small tiara. At my wedding. The narcissism was breathtaking. Well, my mother said, looking around the small bridal suite with obvious disdain. This is quaint. I suppose it matches the rest of this event. Hello, Mother. Brittany. How nice of you to come. Brittany smirked, doing a little twirl to make sure I noticed her dress. I hope you don't mind. White is just so my color. Besides, someone needs to bring some class to this gathering. My mother walked over to my dress hanging on the rack, fingering the fabric with obvious disgust. Is this polyester, oh Sheila? Couldn't you have at least tried? What will people think? I think they'll think I look beautiful, I said calmly. Be beautiful. My mother laughed, a harsh sound that had made me flinch my entire life. Until today. Darling, let's not delude ourselves. This whole affair is an embarrassment. The venue looks like a conference room. Your flowers are clearly from a grocery store, and don't get me started on your guest list. Barely 50 people, Brittany had 700. Quality over quantity, Mother. Brittany pulled out her phone, presumably to take selfies in her white dress at my wedding. I've been telling everyone this is like a practice wedding. You know, for when you marry someone actually successful. Jake is successful, yo, I said. He's a computer person, my mother said, waving her hand dismissively. That's not a real career. Not like Brittany's fashion empire. I almost laughed. The fashion empire that had never sold a single item. But I kept my face neutral. I needed them to keep talking. Speaking of success, my mother continued, I've been thinking, it might be best if I say a few words to your guests to explain the circumstances, so they don't think this reflects on the Morrison family standards. What kind of circumstances? I asked, though I knew exactly where this was going. Well, that this is essentially a charity case, that we couldn't support this union financially because we have concerns about your stability. It's only fair that people understand why a Morrison daughter is having such a modest affair. There it was. The threat Diana had warned me about. They were planning to humiliate me in front of everyone I cared about to paint me as the crazy daughter they were reluctantly indulging. You know what, you're absolutely right, I said, surprising them. You should definitely speak at my wedding. In fact, I insist on it. My mother and Brittany exchanged glances, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. That's when my father arrived, filling the doorway with his bulk. Robert Morrison had always been an intimidating man, and he used his size to his advantage. What's this about speaking? Sheila has agreed that I should address the guests, my mother said, to provide context. Good, he grunted. Then he looked at me, his eyes cold. Though I don't know why you're going through with this farce. You could have saved everyone the embarrassment and just gone to City Hall. Like a common person, Brittany added with a giggle. Actually, Father, since you're here, there's something I need to discuss with you all. I pulled out a folder from my purse. I've been thinking about the family business. His eyes narrowed. What about it? Well, I know you've always said I'm not business material, but I've been looking at some numbers. Just curious, you know. Teacher habits, always researching. You shouldn't be poking around in things you don't understand, he said, his voice taking on a warning tone. Oh, but I do understand. For instance, I understand that the Riverside project you just got approved. The one with the mysterious investors. That's interesting paperwork. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. My father stepped closer. What paperwork? Just some documents I came across. Don't worry, I haven't shown them to anyone. Yet. My mother grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging in. Sheila, what are you playing at? I smiled sweetly. Nothing, Mother. Just making conversation on my wedding day. You always were ungrateful. Brittany spat. Here we are gracing your pathetic wedding with our presence and you're trying to cause drama. That's when she made her move. Brittany had a glass of red wine in her hand because of course she was already drinking at 10 in the morning. She stumbled toward me, the wine splashing directly onto my dress. Oops, she said with fake concern. Oh, no, your dress? And you probably don't have a backup, do you? How embarrassing. I looked down at the red stain spreading across the white fabric, then back up at my family. They were all watching me, waiting for me to break down, to cry, to beg for their help, or their money to fix it. This was their pattern: create a crisis and then swoop in as either saviors or judges. You know what, you're right. This is embarrassing, I said calmly. But not for the reason you think. I walked to my closet and pulled out a second dress identical to the first. Jake and I had anticipated something like this. Good thing I planned ahead. Years of dealing with family taught me to always have a backup plan. The shock on their faces was delicious, but I wasn't done. Now, about that speech at the reception, Mother. I've actually prepared something special. A video presentation about our family. I think the guests will find it very educational. What video? My father demanded. Oh, just some memories, family moments, business successes. You know, the things that make the Morrisons who we are. My father grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to leave marks, but firm enough to show he meant business. Listen carefully, girl. Whatever you think you're doing, stop it now. You don't want to cross this family. Actually, Father, I think it's you who doesn't want to cross me. Not anymore. I pulled my wrist free. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to change. The ceremony starts in 20 minutes. Please take your seats. Front row, of course. I want you to have the best view of everything that's about to happen. This isn't over, my mother hissed. After this joke of a ceremony, we need to have a serious conversation about your future, about your health. I knew exactly what she meant. The psychiatric facility. The plan to have me committed. Oh, I agree completely. After today, we definitely need to discuss the future. All of our futures. As they filed out, Brittany turned back one more time. You know, I almost feel sorry for you. Actually, no, I don't. You deserve everything that's coming to you. Yes, I said quietly. We all get what we deserve in the end. Once they were gone, I quickly changed into my backup dress and texted Diana. They took the bait, threatened me, assaulted me. It's all on camera. Is everything ready? Her response was immediate. FBI is standing by. The moment you give the signal, they move in. Are you absolutely certain? I thought about 28 years of abuse, of being told I was worthless, of having my achievements stolen and my life sabotaged. I thought about the forged documents meant to frame me, the plan to lock me away, the criminal empire built on lies and intimidation. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. I looked at myself one more time in the mirror. The girl who had spent her life trying to earn her family's love was gone. In her place stood a woman who understood that sometimes the only way to stop being a victim is to become the architect of your abuser's downfall. It was time to walk down the aisle. And after I said I do to Jake, I would say goodbye to the Morrison family forever. But first they would learn what happened when you pushed someone too far. They thought my wedding would be an embarrassment. They were right, just not in the way they imagined. The ceremony itself was beautiful in its simplicity. Jake waited for me at the altar, his eyes full of love and understanding. He knew what was coming, had helped plan every detail, and still looked at me like I was his whole world. That's what real family meant, standing by someone when they made the hardest decision of their life. My father walked me down the aisle, playing the role of devoted parent for the small crowd. I could feel his tension in his grip on my arm, could sense his confusion about my earlier comments. Good. Let him wonder. Let them all wonder. As we reached the altar, he leaned in to whisper, "Whatever you're planning, it's not too late to stop." "You're right," I whispered back. "It's not too late. It's exactly the right time." The ceremony was brief, but meaningful. When Jake and I exchanged vows, I meant every word about standing by each other through whatever came next, and what came next would test that promise immediately. After we were pronounced husband and wife, after that perfect kiss that sealed our union, we moved to the reception area. It was modest compared to Brittany's palatial ballroom, but it was ours. Every detail chosen with love, not to impress others or maintain some false image. My family sat at the front table looking like they were at a funeral rather than a wedding. My mother kept checking her watch, probably counting the minutes until she could make her planned speech about my mental instability. Brittany was already on her third glass of champagne, still wearing white, still trying to draw attention to herself. My father sat stone-faced, his eyes never leaving me. The reception began normally enough. First, dance cake cutting toasts from Jake's family that were actually warm and genuine. Then it was time for the speeches from my side of the family. My mother stood up ready to deliver her prepared humiliation. "Thank you all for coming," I said, standing quickly before she could speak. Before my mother shares her thoughts, I've prepared something special. A presentation about family, about where I come from, and about the truth. Jake, could you start the video? The lights dimmed and the projection screen we had set up came to life. At first, the images were innocent enough. Family photos through the years, all of us smiling at various gatherings. Then the title appeared, "The Truth About the Morrison Family, A Legacy of Lies." "What is this?" my mother demanded, but I held up my hand. "Just watch, Mother. You always said I should be proud of our family legacy. Let me show everyone exactly what that legacy is." The first segment showed financial documents, bank statements, money transfers, company records. Diana's voice, disguised but clear, narrated the evidence. The Morrison Construction Company has been accepting funds from known organized crime figures for the past 7 years. These investments were facilitated by Thomas Carlyle, Robert Morrison's business partner. Gasps rippled through the room. My father shot to his feet. "Turn this off now." But the video continued. Screenshots of emails appeared showing the money laundering scheme in detail. How construction projects were used to clean dirty money, how city officials were bribed to look the other way, how the entire empire was built on criminal foundations. Then came the evidence of Brittany's embezzlement. Brittany Morrison has stolen over $400,000 from the company accounts, including funds that belong to their criminal investors. The proof was irrefutable bank records, signed check, security footage of her accessing the company safe. Brittany's champagne glass shattered on the floor. "That's fake, that's all fake." But the next segment made her go pale. Audio recordings of her own voice planning with our mother to destroy my life. "We need to make sure Sheila never finds out about the trust fund Grandma left. I've already had the lawyer change the beneficiary. She's too stupid to check." Trust fund. I had a trust fund from my grandmother that they had stolen. The video wasn't done. Security footage from various hotels showed my mother meeting Thomas Carlyle. The audio was crystal clear as they discussed not just their affair, but their plans to eventually take over the company, entirely cutting out my father once the FBI investigation they knew was coming finally hit. "You were planning to frame me," my father roared at my mother. But the most damning evidence was yet to come. The video of my parents discussing their plan to have me committed to use their connections to make me disappear into a psychiatric facility. Dr. Morrison's voice agreeing to falsify medical records. The forged documents meant to show I had been stealing from the company. "The Morrison family hasn't just been dysfunctional," Diana's disguised voice concluded. "They've been criminal. And they were willing to destroy their own daughter to protect their secrets." The lights came back on. The room was in chaos. Guests were on their phones, some calling police, others simply recording the unfolding drama. My family sat frozen, their carefully constructed world crumbling around them. That's when the doors opened and FBI agents entered, led by Diana's former colleague, Special Agent Martinez. "Robert Morrison, Dorothy Morrison, Brittany Morrison, you're under arrest for money laundering, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You did this," my mother screamed at me as agents approached with handcuffs. "You ungrateful little bitch, after everything we did for you. Everything you did for me." I stood up, my voice carrying across the room. "You mean stealing my inheritance, sabotaging my relationships, planning to have me locked away? Or do you mean years of emotional abuse of telling me I was worthless while you built your criminal empire on lies?" My father tried to run, but he didn't get far. As the agents restrained him, he looked at me with pure hatred. "You've destroyed us. Your own family." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed yourselves. I just showed everyone who you really are." Brittany was sobbing as they cuffed her white dress now stained with spilled champagne and tears. "My children. What about my children?" "Your husband already knows everything," I informed her. "He's been cooperating with the FBI for weeks. Turns out he's been suspicious about where your money came from. He's filing for divorce and full custody. The papers will be served while you're in custody." "You planned all this," she whispered. "You've been planning this." "Yes," I admitted. "For months. Every insult, every attempt to hurt me, every cruel word, I documented it all. You gave me everything I needed to destroy you. And the beautiful irony, if you had just been a normal, loving family, none of this would have happened. Your cruelty was your downfall." As the FBI led them out, my mother turned back one last time. "You'll regret this. You'll be alone. No family, no one." I looked around the room. At Jake, who stood beside me with unwavering support. At his family, who had welcomed me without judgment. At my friends, my colleagues, the people who actually cared about me. "I have a family," I said. "A real one. People who love me for who I am, not what they can use me for." That's something you never understood. The agents left with my family in custody. The room was silent for a moment, then Jake's best man started clapping. Soon the entire room was applauding, not for the spectacle, but for justice served. Well, I said, managing a smile, I guess we should cut the cake. Nervous laughter filled the room, and slowly the reception resumed. It was surreal celebrating while knowing my entire biological family was on their way to federal booking. But as I danced with Jake later, he whispered in my ear, "I'm proud of you." "It's not over," I whispered back. "There will be trials testimony, probably death threats from their criminal associates." "I know," he said, "and I'll be here for all of it." The photographer captured moments from the rest of the reception, me laughing with genuine joy for the first time in years. Jake and I cutting our simple but delicious cake. Our first dance without the weight of secrets between us. These would be the images we would keep, not the ones with my family of criminals. As the evening wound down, Diana approached discreetly. "You did good, kid. It took guts to go through with this." "What happens now?" I asked. Now. Now you go on your honeymoon. Let the FBI do their job. Your family is looking at serious time. The evidence is overwhelming. And you're free." Free. Such a simple word, but I was only beginning to understand what it meant. The news broke while Jake and I were on our honeymoon in Costa Rica. Prominent business family arrested in FBI sting at daughter's wedding. The headlines were everything my image-obsessed mother would have hated. Photos of them being led away in handcuffs were on every news site, Britney's tear-stained face in her white dress becoming an instant meme about narcissism. I turned off my phone for a week, determining to enjoy my honeymoon. But when we returned, the full scope of what had been unleashed became clear. Diana met us at the airport with a security detail. "Your father's criminal associates aren't happy," she explained. "The FBI seized everything, frozen all accounts. The construction company is being dismantled. Some very dangerous people lost a lot of money." The death threats had started coming within days of the arrests. Some were from random people on the internet who thought I was a terrible daughter, but others were more specific, more credible. Professional criminals don't like losing their money laundering operations. "We've moved your belongings to a safe house," Diana continued, "just temporarily until the FBI rounds up the rest of the network." The trials began 2 months later. I had to testify, of course. Sitting in that witness box looking at my family in their orange jumpsuits, I felt nothing. They had killed any love I might have had for them long ago. My mother tried to play the victim card. Her lawyer painted her as a battered wife who was forced to go along with her husband's crimes. But the prosecution had her emails, her voice on recordings, evidence of her active participation. When they played the audio of her planning to have me committed, several jurors visibly recoiled. She was convicted on all counts, 25 to life. My father's trial was more dramatic. His criminal associates had flipped on him to save themselves, testifying about the extent of the money laundering operation. The FBI had found hidden accounts with millions in stolen funds. But what sealed his fate was the testimony of former employees who described how he would brag about keeping Sheila in her place and making sure only one daughter inherited anything. He got 40 years. At his age, it was a life sentence. Brittany's trial was almost pathetic. Without my parents' money, she couldn't afford a good lawyer. The public defender tried to argue that she was just a spoiled rich girl who didn't understand what she was doing. But the evidence of her embezzlement was clear, and worse. They found proof she had been selling information about the company to competitors. She broke down completely when her husband testified. He had been gathering evidence of her affairs, her drug use, her complete absence as a mother. The judge awarded him full custody of their children and a restraining order against Brittany. She got 15 years and lost everything: her children, her homes, her pretend business, her reputation. But the trials were just the beginning of their downfall. The media couldn't get enough of the story. The wedding sting became a true crime sensation. Podcasts dissected every detail of our dysfunctional family. Documentary crews reached out wanting to tell the story. I declined them all. I had no interest in profiting from this nightmare. Meanwhile, the full extent of their crimes kept being revealed. The FBI found evidence of tax evasion going back 20 years. The IRS got involved, seizing every asset they could find. The houses, the cars, the jewelry, everything was auctioned off to pay back taxes and restitution. My mother's charity connections evaporated overnight. The society ladies who had hung on her every word now pretended they had never known her. Stories started coming out about how she had stolen from the charities, skimming donations meant for underprivileged children. The family friends who had enabled them scattered like roaches. Dr. Morrison lost his medical license and was charged with conspiracy to commit false imprisonment. He took a plea deal and got 5 years, but his career was over. Others who had helped my family's schemes face their own legal troubles. Thomas Carlyle, my mother's lover and my father's partner, tried to flee the country but was caught at the airport. His trial revealed even more crimes, including 2 murders he had ordered to protect the money laundering operation. My mother's face when she learned her lover was a killer was almost worth everything I had been through. Almost. Extended family members who had believed my family's lies about me started reaching out with apologies. Aunts and uncles who had treated me like a pariah now wanted to reconnect. I accepted some apologies, ignored others. 28 years of complicity couldn't be erased with a sorry. The worst part for my family wasn't even the prison sentences. It was the complete destruction of their reputation. Everything they had valued, their social standing, their business empire, their false legacy, it all turned to ash. My mother, who had lived for appearances, became a cautionary tale about greed and narcissism. My father, who had preached about family values, became the poster child for corruption. Brittany, who had wanted fame so desperately, got it, but as a meme and a joke, not as the fashion icon she had pretended to be. 6 months after the arrests, I got a letter from Brittany in prison. She begged for money for help with her appeal for me to speak to her children on her behalf. I sent back a copy of the email where she had planned to have me committed with a simple note: no. My father tried a different approach, having his lawyer threaten to sue me for destroying the family business. The lawyer quickly dropped the case when Diana reminded him that I was a protected federal witness and any harassment would be dealt with severely. My mother never wrote. But I heard through the prison grapevine that she had been placed in solitary after attacking another inmate who mentioned seeing the Wedding Sting documentary that someone eventually made without my cooperation. A year after the wedding, Jake and I were finally able to move out of the safe house. The FBI had arrested most of the criminal network, and the death threats had stopped. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood far from where I had grown up. I returned to teaching, though. Now my students occasionally recognized me from the news. I used it as a teaching moment about standing up to bullies, even when those bullies are your own family. The final irony came when the Grandmother's Trust Fund was finally sorted out. My family had stolen most of it, but there was still a substantial amount left. I used it to start a foundation for victims of family abuse and financial manipulation. Every year, we help dozens of people escape situations similar to mine. I named it the Truth Legacy Foundation. My mother would have hated the name, which made it perfect. 5 years have passed since my wedding day, since the moment I chose justice over a toxic version of family loyalty. I'm 33 now, sitting in the nursery. I painted soft yellow watching my daughter sleep in her crib. Emma is 6 months old, and when I look at her, I sometimes think about the childhood I had and make silent promises that hers will be nothing like it. Jake and I waited to have children. We needed time to heal, to build our life without the shadow of my family looming over us. The therapy helped more than I expected. Dr. Sarah Chen specialized in survivors of family abuse, and she helped me understand that what my family did to me had a name: scapegoating. I was the designated bearer of all their failures, their crimes, their inadequacies. You didn't destroy your family, she told me in one session. They destroyed themselves. You just refused to be destroyed along with them. The teaching job I returned to became more than just a career. I developed a curriculum on recognizing manipulation and abuse. age-appropriate lessons that might help kids understand when family dynamics aren't normal. The principal was supportive, especially after one student came forward about their own toxic home situation because of our classroom discussions. Miss Sheila saved my life. The student told a reporter who was doing a follow-up story on "Where is she now?" I declined the interview, but hearing that one child was helped made everything worth it. The Truth Legacy Foundation grew beyond my wildest dreams. What started with the remnants of my grandmother's trust fund attracted other donors who had their own stories of family financial abuse. We've helped over 300 people in 5 years, providing legal resources, emergency housing, and counseling for those escaping toxic family situations. Last week, I received a call from a young man named David. His story sounded hauntingly familiar. Successful older sibling who could do no wrong, parents building a criminal enterprise, plans to frame him if things went bad. We got him out, got him safe, got him legal help. He cried in my office, 25 years old, and feeling like a failure for not being able to win his parents' love. Their love was conditional on you being their victim, I told him. That's not love, that's control. Jake's business thrived once the threats and sabotage stopped. He developed an app specifically for documenting abuse and gathering evidence safely. He jokes that my family inspired his greatest success, but we both know the success came from his brilliant mind finally being free to work without fear. We don't talk about my family often. Sometimes Jake asks if I ever wonder about them, especially on holidays when we're surrounded by his loving, normal family. The truth is, I do think about them, but not with longing or regret. I think about them the way you think about a disease you survived, grateful to be healthy, aware of the scars, but not defined by the illness. My mother remains in federal prison. I know because Victim Services sends me updates I never asked for. She's apparently found religion, though. Knowing her, it's probably just another manipulation tactic. She's sent letters through various channels, but they go straight to my lawyer unopened. I have nothing to say to her, and I don't want to hear anything she has to say. My father died 2 years ago. Heart attack in his cell. I found out from a news alert on my phone. Disgraced business mogul dies in federal prison. I waited to feel something, grief, relief, anything. But there was just emptiness. He had been dead to me since long before his actual death. Brittany got out on parole last month. The conditions are strict. No contact with me, regular drug testing, mandatory therapy, restricted travel. Her ex-husband reached out to warn me, worried she might violate the no-contact order. He's remarried now to a woman who actually loves his children. They call her Mom. Brittany is just the lady who sometimes sends cards the court makes us give you. She's broken, he told me. Prison destroyed whatever was left of her. She keeps talking about how unfair it all is, how you ruined her life. No accountability, no recognition of what she did. The therapist says she's completely narcissistic, incapable of seeing herself as anything but a victim. I thanked him for the warning, but wasn't worried. The security system Jake installed is excellent, and more importantly, I'm not the scared girl I used to be. If Brittany shows up, she'll be met by a woman who knows her worth and won't tolerate abuse in any form. But the best part of these 5 years hasn't been watching my family fall or building my new life. It's been the connections with others who understand. The support group I started meets monthly, and we've become a chosen family of sorts. People who understand that sometimes the most toxic people in your life share your DNA. There's Margaret, whose mother stole her identity and ruined her credit. Thomas, whose family laundered money through his name when he was too young to understand. Amy, whose parents convinced her siblings she was crazy and dangerous, isolating her completely. We sit in a circle, share our stories, and remind each other that we're not crazy, we're not worthless, and we're definitely not alone. Last Christmas, 15 of us gathered at my house for what we call Orphan Christmas. Jake cooked an enormous turkey, everyone brought dishes from their cultural traditions, and we laughed until our sides hurt. No one criticized anyone's appearance. No one made passive-aggressive comments. No one threatened or manipulated or schemed. It was just love. Simple, uncomplicated love. As I rock Emma back to sleep, I think about the legacy I want to leave her. Not money hidden in offshore accounts or a business built on crime. Not a family name that opens doors but comes with chains. I want to leave her the knowledge that love shouldn't hurt, that family should build you up, not tear you down, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who don't deserve you. The doorbell rings and I hear Jake greeting the pizza delivery guy. It's Friday, our traditional pizza and movie night. Such a simple pleasure, but one my birth family would have mocked as common. Now I know that common moments of genuine happiness are worth more than all their stolen wealth. Honey. Jake calls softly, "Dinner's here. Want me to take Em so you can eat?" I hand him our daughter and watch as he expertly settles her against his shoulder, humming the lullaby his mother taught him. This is what family looks like. Not perfect, not wealthy, not impressive by shallow standards, but real. My phone buzzes with a text from one of my students. "Ms. S, my mom says I can't come to tutoring anymore because grades don't matter for girls. What do?" I type back, "Come anyway, I'll talk to her. Grades matter for everyone. Don't let anyone dim your light." Maybe that's my real legacy. Not the dramatic downfall of a criminal empire, but the quiet work of helping others see their worth. Of teaching children that they matter. Of showing abuse survivors that there's life after escape. Of proving every single day that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living free. They called my wedding an embarrassment. They were right. It was an embarrassment to them. It embarrassed their criminal enterprise right into federal prison. It embarrassed their fake reputation into newspaper headlines. It embarrassed their careful manipulations into recorded evidence. But for me, my wedding was the beginning of everything. The day I stopped being Sheila Morrison family scapegoat and became Sheila Martinez survivor teacher mother, and finally free. The pizza smells amazing. Jake has Emma sleeping peacefully. My phone has 3 messages from foundation recipients sharing their victories. Life is good. Life is simple. Life is exactly what it should have been all along. And that's the most terrifying thing of all for people like my family. Not the FBI raids or the prison sentences or the public humiliation. It's the fact that without them, I didn't just survive. I thrived. What an incredible story of courage and justice, I have to ask. Have you ever dealt with toxic family members who tried to sabotage your happiness? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below and share your story, because sometimes knowing we're not alone is the first step to healing. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps other people find these stories who might need to hear them. And if you want to hear more true stories about standing up to bullies and finding your strength, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that family isn't about blood, it's about love and respect. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, you deserve to be surrounded by people who celebrate your successes, not sabotage them. Until next time, stay strong and never let anyone make you feel like you're not enough.